Finding the right words to describe your business and the impact that you make can be a little tough. But my guest today is giving us her best tips for how to find your authentic brand voice and positively influence people through your words. Hayley Barnes is the founder of Rock Paper Copywriting, a copywriting agency for heart-centered entrepreneurs who know they want to make an impact. Specializing in launch and email copywriting, Hayley helps women stop feeling squeamish about selling and find an authentic brand voice and have copy that they are proud of. Hayley actually is the brilliant copywriter behind our recent Girl Gang launch campaign, and she is so full of wisdom. I'm excited to have her on the podcast, and I cannot wait for you to hear this episode. So let's dive in. Welcome to the podcast. I think this might be my very first international guest coming to us live from across the pond. That's what they say, I guess. So, Hayley, I'm so excited to have you here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, we were talking a little bit before we turned on the mics that I had this specific topic in mind for this week, because as you know, we're counting down to the launch of Six Figure School. And one of the biggest struggles that I've even had as an entrepreneur is like, how do I find the right words to describe what it is, like this amazing thing I've created? How do I describe it and write this copy? And I was laughing to you that I had this like thought, like, gosh, okay, who could I have come and speak on this? I just don't know. And then meanwhile, we have been just recently working together on a project, and we'll share more about that. But here, my very own copywriter, that wasn't the first person that I thought that came to mind. So luckily, I connected the dots, and I'm so glad that you're here.
Yeah, no, when you mentioned it on Zoom, it was kind of like, yeah, of course I'll jump on and speak to you about copywriting. I live and breathe it. So
yes.
What's new?
Oh gosh. Well, and to give everyone some context, for Powerhouse Women, I've shared this story a lot, but so much of this business was really bootstrapped in the beginning. And I, just like many of you, learned along the way. And I did a lot of my own copywriting, and I did a lot of those things from the start. And then this year, we've really started to invest in putting the right team together to help us bring this message to even more women. And I started working with an incredible company called The Dream Factory. Shout out to the whole team at The Dream Factory. And the biggest gift that came along with it was you, and really someone who just really understood and got the heart of Powerhouse Women and could put it into words pretty much right away. So we're going to give you some tips. If you're still in the DIY phase, we're going to get to some tips later about how you can do that and not feel so scared about copywriting. But I would love to dive in first to your story and just how have you always loved words? How did you know you wanted to be a copywriter, and how did that journey unfold?
Yeah, I mean, I really wish I could say it was an overnight thing. But my journey, I would put it down to starting about 10 years ago when I was studying for marketing. And I distinctly remember at the end of the degree thinking, oh, I really want to write ads for film companies. Like that is what I wanted to do, or theatre companies. And I really wanted to do that. But I didn't realize, and it's funny thinking back on it, I didn't realize that copywriting was a thing. I didn't know it was a job or a career. I just thought, oh, okay, it's marketing. Let's go into that, And when I kind of like left university and tried to go down marketing, it was really hard because, you graduate and everyone's trying to do the same thing, and it's a tough world. So my pathway really changed, and I actually went into kitchen design. So I design and sell kitchens. Yeah. And I learned so much sales psychology through that. It's unbelievable. And I felt throughout that, or, like towards the end of that I was always drawn back to marketing. And I was always in that position trying to find ways to connect with more people. And I was like the go-to person for creating flyers and writing copy. And, like I worked for a big national company. They had a whole marketing department, but I just always gravitated back towards marketing. So after working with a couple of agencies and writing ads and things like that, I finally launched Rock Paper Copywriting last summer. And it has been a whirlwind from there. And yeah, I'm really happy being where I am and connecting the dots between, serving and selling. And it's a fun journey.
Yeah. I love it because, and I've talked about this on the podcast before too, when we hear this term, like your zone of genius, a lot of times it's something that is so second nature to us that we may not realize that that can be an actual career. And
Yeah.
I think so many people too could easily overlook the thing that they're really best at. And sometimes it takes us a while to connect those dots, like you said.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like being where I am now and looking back on my life, and even when I was like super young, I always loved writing. But it just for some people, it will just take, a lifetime. I'm grateful that I figured it out now. But it does take a long time to really find your purpose sometimes. And sometimes you get that straight away. So it's all in the journey.
Yes. Well, so I would love if you would clarify for people who may be at an earlier part of the journey, maybe they don't even really understand what a copywriter actually does. Can you just explain a little bit about your role and how you support entrepreneurs in bringing their vision to life?
Yeah, so essentially, copywriters will work with you to identify your brand voice, really hone in on your message to allow you to resonate with your dream clients and your dream audience. And essentially, it is just connecting the dots between coaches or entrepreneurs wanting to share their gifts and being able to impact the people that they want to share them with. So it's the kind of like middleman in that way.
Yeah, I feel like my experience too has been, I don't know if this is how it feels on your end, but I feel like I just kind of verbal vomit a lot of things. And then you give them back to me like packaged in this beautiful box with a bow. And then you open it and like butterflies fly out. That's like in my mind, like what I'm getting back. I'm like,
I love
wow,
that.
I said that? I sound amazing in your paraphrased version. But I think it's important to realize that sometimes as entrepreneurs, we're so close to what we created that it is tough to put into words. And sometimes having that outside perspective is super powerful.
Yeah, and it can seem really intimidating,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to writing sales pages, where it feels like everything that you've worked for and you've built is honing on, the performance on this sales page. And copywriting is a huge part of that. So I totally get why it can feel really overwhelming and be such a barrier that delays a lot of things. But once you kind of like wrap your head around it, or once you kind of outsource it and admit, I want to stay in my zone of genius and pass that baton on, then you can make magic.
Yes. And, you mentioned sales pages in particular. A lot of times, the place where words matter most and you want to be clear yet concise is in more of the sales copy, right? A website
Yeah.
is really a sales tool. A sales page is a sales tool. Even a flyer can be a sales tool.
Yeah.
So I would love if we could equip everyone with, those who are still in the DIY phase. Maybe they just have a desire to learn a little bit about this before they eventually hand it off. But what are some of I know you've been just like so generous in giving some tips already in our Girl Gang membership group.
Yeah.
I've been creeping on them because I'm like, ooh, I would also like to know this answer. But what are some initial tips to just reduce the overwhelm with the thought of staring at a blank page and getting started in writing and bringing this vision to life through words?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and again, I was having this conversation in the Girl Gang membership. The first thing that I would suggest to do is to really look inwards at who you want to be, who you want to show up as, and who you want to serve, and really hone in on what your brand voice will be. Because I often find that obviously in the world that we're in, being so easily accessible to other people and seeing success on a daily basis, you can be inspired and you can want to emulate different people, but you want to draw a line and really know who you are, so you can also provide an authentic voice and a consistent voice to your own audience. So that would be tip number one, just outline your brand voice and really look inwards to do that. And I think when it comes to writing copy, once you've kind of had a real good brainstorm around who you want to be and who you want to show up as, and this sounds really simple, but just write. Literally just write and don't edit. Don't look back. Just, like you say, word vomit on a Google Doc or something like that, and then edit and sleep on it and edit and really refine it. And like you say, copywriting is about being concise and being clear. So read every single word. And if that word isn't serving the message that you want to be, giving out, then take it out. So I mean, a lot of us copywriters say that we're okay copywriters, but great editors all the time. That's like a saying in the industry. So yeah, I think just help that creative side of the brain and don't interrupt when it's trying to like write what is going to be impactful to your audience.
I love that you say that. And this is something you're helping me realize. I used to be really consistent when it was when I was writing my first book, with just writing every day. And it was like a muscle. And the more I wrote, the more creativity came to me. But I love how you said just write without stopping yourself and then go back and edit another time. And that, for fellow perfectionists, that was tough for me at first, because even though I was the only one who was ever going to see this piece of paper, I didn't like to leave it like it felt unfinished. But there was actually a lot of freedom that came from doing exactly what you're saying and allowing just whatever thoughts would come, allowing them to come out, and then on a totally different time, give some space, like you said, sleep on it, go back and give it another look.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think that even when you are trying to keep to a deadline or you're trying to make sure that you have the copy by a certain period of time, then it's still important to, go for a walk outside and come back to it. Like turn the screen off and come back to it, because it's amazing what your brain will do subconsciously to the text when you get back. And then you can like edit it in the way that, sometimes I come back, I'm like, why did I write that? That doesn't even make sense. And then I'll edit it.
And do you ever bounce your ideas off of someone else? Like have someone else read it and run it through that filter of, okay, do they understand it? Does someone who, isn't in my brain? That is eye-opening. Like, what do you mean you don't understand?
100%. And like my partner, I have to tell him, okay, you are a female who is wanting to deal with hormones. Like, this is the person you are. Like, try read it in that respect. And he's like, right, okay, I'll try my best. And then I can tell, like if I'm reading it out loud and he loses concentration or he doesn't quite get a certain bit, it's like, okay, that needs work. And if at the end of it, he's not saying, sign, might not be for the hormone thing, but if he's not like, sign me up, then it needs work. So, yeah.
Something, and I know we've used this a lot, even I got to just give it to you as a tool as you were writing copy for us, is something I've always done. And I don't know where I learned to do this, or it just was very intuitive, is to gather feedback from the people that we want to serve. And I'll look for, whenever I feel really stuck, I'll look for themes. What are they saying? How do they say it? And then I'll filter my own communication to see, am I using the words that they would actually use? Am I explaining it in the way that they would explain the problem that they're having, the challenge that they're having? And I don't know if it's just because I wasn't confident in my own ability to capture it, or it just felt like an easier path. But that's something that's really helped me too, just to learn how to communicate better.
Yeah.
And find that voice.
100%. That's something that when I onboard a client or when I'm writing copy for a client, I have to have all their testimonials, like regardless of what they're about, because there will be key themes and keywords that will come out. And if you're clients and your dream audience are saying these things, then they resonate with them. So have them in your copy. And it's something so simple but so effective.
It's so true. And just the reminder, and I think you've mentioned this in a couple different ways, that we really are writing for that person that we want to impact. It really doesn't matter if I resonate with it. It matters if they do. And being open to getting feedback about where maybe I missed the mark. It's not always fun to get that feedback, but at the end of the day, I'm committed to the whatever copy it is that I'm writing, to it connecting and really making that impact.
Yeah.
So it's been really helpful to have an outside person now looking at this with us and helping us create it. So we've been working a lot on sales pages. Let's just spend a couple minutes talking specifically on that. So once we start to allow ourselves to write freely and we're getting some of this brand voice dialed in, what are some of those key elements of a sales page that when you're
Yeah.
looking at it and crafting it, what are the things that we really should just know and make sure are there? It could be in terms of writing elements or, the flow of it. I know that feels overwhelming at first, creating that initial sales page. So any tips you can give us there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that with sales pages, because it's slightly different from an email sequence where you can have 5, 6, 7 emails over the course, and each one can be different and appeal to different buying personalities. But for sales pages, you've got to have one page do the work for every buying personality. And the way to do that is to kind of really understand, okay, so there's a buying personality that will buy on emotion and it'll buy on story. So make sure you have some form of resonating story in your sales page. And then you will have analytical buyers who will buy off social proof. They'll buy off numbers and statistics. So make sure all your testimonials kind of like factor that element as well. And make sure that they are overcoming objections. So with testimonials in particular, like even though you're not writing the copy, your clients are writing the copy, or whoever your server is writing the copy technically, you need to make sure it's intentional on that sales page and to be able to overcome objections within them. So within that social proof. So yeah, they're the two things that I'd really recommend when writing a sales page to be aware of. And then obviously you have like the set elements of a sales page. So you'll have your visualization tools, you'll have your, okay, this is for this, project is for the person who resonates with X, Y, and Z. So yeah.
Even just that reminder about realizing that people buy for different reasons. I was thinking about it. I'm like, gosh, which one am I? I think I'm more analytical when it comes to actually hitting purchase, but it's so powerful, again, getting feedback maybe from someone who's wired differently than you. Like, is it compelling to them in a different personality? Do you have that social proof like you're talking about? And even just looking at it through that critical eye, I think if you go back, if you have a sales page already or you're going to be creating one, look at it through that lens. Is it appealing to those different people who are motivated differently to make buying decisions? And be honest, I think just that alone, if someone took that one tip and ran with it, could exponentially increase their results. And this even translates to social media, really. I mean, we're talking about
Yeah.
sales pages, but I'm like, wow, that actually could, that's a good reminder for any copy that we're writing anywhere in our business, to think
Yeah.
through those how differently people are wired.
Yeah. And it's definitely one of the main elements to writing email campaigns as well. And we've talked about this recently. So within like a welcome sequence, for example, you would always have some form of storytelling because that's your emotional buyer. And then you will have, like I say, testimonials in that as well. And more of the hardcore data, or the more logistical things when you're launching a program. So you may write an email about deep diving into one particular module of a course that you're launching, for example, because the logistical people need that email to buy into what you're selling. So it really, I think, like you say, it really resonates and it really works for every single thing you write. Just having that really broad understanding of the different types of buying personalities and how they can impact everyone.
Yeah. And I bet we all have a little bit of all of the personalities in us. I do love a
Yeah.
good story too. So, I mean, clearly this is something you've always had an interest in and something you do have a zone of genius for. But are there any great books that you've read, any great resources that have helped you fine tune this skill of copywriting and really influence people with words? I always love good book recommendations.
Yeah, I mean, breakthrough advertising is like the Bible of copywriting. So
I
if
haven't heard
you,
of it.
oh, it is the Bible. So if you read like the first, because it is a long read and it was written a long time ago. So if you read the first three chapters of that, then you will get a really good grasp on copywriting. And then recently, actually, this is less about copywriting and more about just sales psychology and selling in general. But the Catalyst is a book that I've read, and I think it's Jonah Berger. I think that's by, and yeah, I'm bad with names. And he, like, the way that he says this is modern day selling, and it's different from how it was. You know, it's not that sleazy selling that we've all come to get over, thank God. But it's more about these different roadblocks that can get in the way and how to overcome them. And I think that's a really interesting one to read about sales psychology as well.
Okay, cool. I'm adding both of those to my list. At least the first three chapters of the first one you mentioned. We'll see about the rest.
Yeah, it might take a while. It's one of them, long text things, but yeah, no, there's so much value in it. It's almost, I think that's why as well, because it's jam packed with so much that it takes a while to actually sink in.
Yeah, yeah. And it's such a good reminder too that these are skills that are really honed over time with practice. I know something that you are really passionate about is helping women to feel less afraid of selling within their businesses. So, why is that something that you are really on a mission to do?
Yeah, I think that there's always this barrier between heart-centered entrepreneurs and selling. And one of my friends who she was a breath work coach, she was really kind of asking me, I find selling like unethical. I don't resonate with it. I don't know how to do it. And I think reframing, okay, so if you're not selling, then you're not serving these people that you can impact, and trying to help reframe that process that if you put yourself out there, you are serving these people. And I know that you've mentioned this before,
Yeah.
but it's so important. And that's, yeah, I'm so passionate about being able to be like, hang on, sales isn't a bad thing, because could you imagine the world that we would be in if no one sold anything? So yeah, it's yeah, it can be so impactful.
It's such a good reframe and reminder for all of us that selling is serving. I love that. So, you love to work with, I'm sure, a lot of different businesses, but what are some of your favorites that you really love to serve in a copywriting capacity? And then, of course, tell us where people can find you, connect with you, all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love working with anybody in the wellness industry, so wellness coaches or heart-centered entrepreneurs, like I've said, anybody who knows they want to make a big impact and they just maybe aren't sure how to get there, or they are sure how to get there and just want to stay in their zone of genius. So that's essentially who I tend to work with. And that might be in the form of mindset coaches, spiritual, I mean, even business development that has a huge form of mindset. I mean, we work together all the time. I love writing copy for that because it's so impactful. So yeah, they're the type of people that I like to work with. And you will find me on Instagram a lot of the time. So not that I've built it up too much, because I'm not really good at doing that. But yeah, rock paper copywriting on Instagram. That's where you'll find me.
And we'll make sure to link all of it in the show notes as well. But those of you that are in the girl gang, Hayley you were our first international member, truly.
Yes, I'm
We
taking
did add another
that.
one just recently. So the international contingent is growing. But you have just been so generous in connecting with everyone and just really have immersed yourself from day one into this community. And it really goes to show the heart that you put into the work that you do. And I'm just so grateful. I feel just fortunate to have your zone of genius in our business, but as a partner, but just really your friendship too. It's been so much fun getting to create with you over the last couple
Yeah,
months.
the Girl Gang membership is going places. It's so fun in there already. And it's been amazing to even see how far we've kind of come together and the journey that you're gonna take Powerhouse Women. So
I
it's
can't wait.
exciting.
Well, I have one final question, and then actually we get to hop off and switch over to our conversation about all of our projects. So this is a question that's really fun to ask, just women in my life who are doing big things. And it's something that I know I'm working on being better at myself, which is stopping to acknowledge the times when I am great and when I do things well, because it's easier for me to talk about the things that I'm not doing well or I'm working on. So we just call it your powerhouse moment. It could be anything big or small in the last little season, where first thing that comes to mind where you're like, you know what? I was a total powerhouse in that moment. What would it be?
Oh, that is a good question. Do you know what? It's really hard for me to pick out one defining moment or recent moment, but I think that because my business is still, in the first year and having launched last summer. So when I think back to where I was then and where I am now and how much I'm able to impact different people and obviously work with people like you and be able to impact your community, and know that I haven't done that with tons of visibility. I haven't grown my Instagram to 10,000 people or more, and had that swipe up feature. And I think that a lot of people maybe who listen to the podcast can resonate with thinking that they need to get everything in line before they actually launch something or do something, right? So I think, the one thing I would say is just do it. Just go out and make that impact, because you don't have to have all these followers and you don't have to have everything, a website, a crazy, nice looking website, to be able to make impact.
Oh, it's so well said, and a reminder that we all need. So I'm so grateful to you, and thanks so much for sharing your wisdom with our podcast listeners today.
You're welcome.